Welcome back to the Life Endurance Podcast. My name is Austin Shadle, and today I'm excited to bring to you another guest episode. I sat down with Malcom Konik, a fellow endurance runner. He's completed many ultramarathons with varying results, several of those races taking place in even remote parts of Africa, where he stayed and was hosted by local tribes. We dig into cool race stories like this, as well as life in general. So without further ado, we'll jump into the conversation. Joining me today is Malcom Konik, a fellow ultra runner that I actually just met this last week, had a little social hike. So I'll likely learn about as much as the listeners today, but appreciate you coming on today.
Happy to be here.
So, like I said, yeah, you're also a fellow ultra runner. What's a little bit of your history with ultra running? What kind of races have you done, built up to?
Well, I took a familiar path to many ultra runners I know, which was jumping into a race I had no business running and figuring it out from there. I was, I think, 3 minutes from cutoff at my first 50.
Wow.
And then a month later, DNF'd my first 100 attempt.
Wow.
And started to figure out what it took to build up a base. And now I'm probably right around 15 or 20 ultras in. And
Wow. Okay.
only one more DNF. So not...
How much time, or when you went into that first 50 and then 100, how were you a runner before that for a while, or how much time did you give yourself to kind of prep for that?
So I had done Pikes Peak Ascent a couple of times, and I'd done Pikes Peak Marathon once. Had a couple of years of running as an adult. The tricky bit was, as a kid, loved cross-country running, and then as a teenager, I took, 10 years, close to 10 years off from running before really getting serious again. So relearning to love running was the biggest hurdle in getting to that ultra level.
Mm-hmm. So as a kid, you were a runner and then stopped for a bit. What kind of got you back into it?
Well, my dad, he was top 5% on Pikes Peak Ascent many years in a row, and he's a great guy, and he saw me really struggling in I think I was probably about 21, and he'd drag me out of bed, and I'd be hungover and smelling like everything I drank last night, and he'd drag me to the base of the incline, and we'd go hike up it, and we'd go for a little run down bar, and slowly but surely I was able to start replacing some of those bad habits with I want to call running a good habit, but
I would agree. I'm one of those people. I'm always promoting running, obviously, and yeah, big into me and my buddy that I've met and been running a lot out here. We like to say we gaslight people into believing that they can trail run, and then just get them running until they can actually do it. So far, we've got a few people locked in.
I've definitely had a couple of people who I've encouraged to waste all of their free time and money on what I build as a inexpensive hobby, and what really ended up being
it can sneak up on you.
Consuming lifestyle.
Especially trail running, you can beat up some shoes pretty quick, and then figuring out what shoes work best for you. Next thing you know, you're like 4 or 5 pairs deep, and
oh yeah, well,
race fees.
I love that REI yard sale. That's been half the shoes I've ever run in. It's a $40 pair of shoes will get me through it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's kind of I feel like a pattern I've seen a lot. I mean, getting into fitness and stuff's definitely always helped me through like tough times. But I remember listening to Candace Burt's, I think it's like Humans of Ultra Running podcast, and it seemed like there's a lot of or a pattern of people with either addiction or like issues like that seem to find their way into ultra running. Curious if that's another pattern you've seen.
I mean, definitely. One of the most frustrating parts of loving Courtney Dauwalter is just how positive and easy she makes it look. I think it was her Tahoe race recap video, and they start it with everyone has a demon, and that's why they're doing this. And at the very end, they ask her what's her demon, and she just smiles and goes, "I just really like running." But I came from I dropped out of high school. I left my hometown and started train hopping and hitchhiking and lived as a street kid for a couple of years. And I've spent more days drunk than I have running. So I'm still trying to catch up on that. But I, you know, in transitioning into running and living a healthier lifestyle, going vegan and focusing on living in line with my ethics, I realized how much of the struggle of addiction and homelessness and depression can be translated into trail time decision making and the mental state that it takes to pick yourself up when you are absolutely broken and find fresh legs on the other side of that.
Yeah, for me, I'd say, I mean, kind of, I suppose, polar opposite background. I was that very just like textbook kid, did good in high school, went through engineering school, all that jazz. But yeah, everybody's kind of got their own little demons. And I think part of what I set like really high standards for myself. I know I could accomplish a lot. And I think why I really like running, or I've always been drawn to it since I got into it in high school, is that it's just like it's all up to you and you don't have to like worry about the external world. I mean, when you're running, it's kind of like a meditative state and you're probably processing all those things from the external world, but it's a hobby that's just all down to you. And it's nice to have something that I think is just completely in your control. You choose if you train or not. And then
Yeah, I've had the mentality that when life is overwhelming, running has been an outlet to be able to tune all of the noise out and focus on just one thing. And sometimes that one thing is the run itself, but often I'll be problem solving something in my life, a relationship, or a problem in my social life. But sometimes it's just I'm having trouble figuring something out at work, and just because I'm running, I'm able to clear that fog and get every other issue in my head to quiet down for just that 30 minutes or just that hour and really tune into one thing. And I think that's one of those healthy outputs that I would use to, gaslight more people into this.
Yeah, I think something I've noticed is like when your mind is racing and all that sort of stuff, sometimes you just need a way to, by channeling that physical energy, that's kind of can be the conduit to really being able to focus. You're distracting your body with running, trying not to, especially if you're into trail running, trying not to, fall down a mountain or something. And it can kind of take up that just excess noise. And then you can really, once you get into that zone, dive into a thought. For me, I lived in Iowa up until this last year, and I noticed that sometimes, even when it was just really cold and dark out, that was almost one of my favorite times to run. It's kind of like the opposite of a sensory deprivation tank, but I feel like it almost accomplishes the same thing because your body's so focused on trying to stay warm, like fighting the cold, but then you're also constantly moving. I feel like those are some of the times I could really just like sit in my thoughts. And then
well, I spend more time running in the winter than I do in the summer, just and more time at night just because of my work schedule. Not a morning guy. I'm gonna be.
I'm not either.
I met you
I'm
at a
always
night hike.
I'm
And
always trying to be, but it just nature
yeah,
takes its course, and next thing you know, it's 1 a.m. or something.
yeah. Well, I adore the night run. I'm perfectly comfortable through headlamp.
Hmm.
Um, fairly confident on descents, if not through stupidity, just through learning that I can usually catch myself, or the consequences of falling are
Yeah.
usually fairly small. Um, but those night runs are beautiful, and I have a tradition. I always try to get out for the coldest temp of the year, and I missed the night of -10 here, but I
I was
think
gonna
this
say we
year,
just not too long ago had like a week
yeah,
long just brutal cold spurt.
I got out in, I think it was -5 or -6, and that's the run where like the your breath freezes on your eyelashes,
Hmm.
and your vision goes blurry. But I mean, just the crunch of snow in a perfectly quiet town. All you can hear is snow, your breath, and all you
Hmm.
can see is what your headlamp is illuminating. And that's just for an ADD kid, that's the best meditation I'm ever gonna
Mm-hmm.
find. You get me to sit still in a lit up room full of hippies, and I'm not gonna have an easy path towards that mental clarity. But you put me on a trail and
Hmm.
give me only a headlamp's field of view, and that's it's the best problem solving time I've got.
Yeah, something that I found interesting moving out here, finally getting into ultras and trail running. On trail running, for me at least, like a 11-mile run with some decent gain. If you're a big runner, 11 miles might not sound like too much, but on the trails, that's a good 3-hour run for me. And it's been wild to see how a 3-hour run on the trails, just like how fast that can go by, or it doesn't feel like a really long time when you go do 3 hours just on like a city paved trail. That kind of it really feels like a long run,
It
whereas out on the
takes
trail I just get like lost in it. And I also find myself, I might be tired, hungry, but I don't feel like, oh, I just want to go home. I'm still enjoying being out on the trails. It's kind
Yeah,
of something new for me.
that's one of the. I mean, I was born and raised here in Colorado Springs, and that's something I was spoiled with because
Mm.
I've run. I've been lucky enough to head out to Egypt a couple of times, and running with some friends out there in
Mm-hmm.
Cairo. It's 100% road running, dodging traffic.
Oh, okay. So like
Just
in the city.
uh,
Kind
they self-describe themselves as the second craziest
of.
traffic in the world. But I've run around the island of Zamalek. It's a little island on the Nile. Perfect 10K loop around the perimeter of it with
Mm.
a 73-year-old friend. Her name is Zohra. She's incredible, but she is dodging traffic without a second thought, and I am scared out of my mind the entire time. And then I come back to Colorado, and I can hit a trail. If you get out of town at least, you can hit a trail and not run into another person all
Mm-hmm.
day. And yeah, that 10K on a trail just feels like you're just warming up, whereas in
Mm-hmm.
in the city it feels
Oh,
like an event. Like it feels like you've aged yourself by the end of it.
yeah. I remember you mentioning taking some trips over to Egypt. What? Yeah. What was the? How did that come to be? That opportunity.
Well, I tried to bring up Egypt as early as possible because that's my girlfriend quickly learned when we started talking to each other that if she wanted me to uh, stick around, all she had to do was bring up ultras or Egypt or vegan food or dogs or trains, and I'd talk all day. And
Well, that's what podcasts are for, talking. So
yeah.
let her rip.
Well, the Egypt trip came about. I was in a little bit of legal trouble. Um, uh, been an activist all my life, and have had the great pleasure to be arrested alongside several of my friends at several peaceful protests. But I was on probation and fighting another charge. And if I had have gotten a guilty charge, I would have been, grounded. But I was on Instagram. This race kept coming up, kept getting advertised to me. It was their inaugural year. It's called the Hathor 100 by an organization called Ultra Egypt. And right around the last week of registration, or the applications to be allowed to register, we settled my protest case, and I was clean bill unsupervised probation, so I booked a flight to Egypt and contacted the race organizers, and within a month I was out there. One night in Cairo, 6-hour drive to the middle of nowhere, South Sinai, a place called Sarabat al-Khadim, and the next morning I was running, I think it was 40K the first day and 60K the second day, and completely out of the blue, ended up winning that race, my first career win, and when I say some of the nicest, most hospitable people I've ever met, if I told you the stories of their hospitality, it would sound like I was exaggerating or bolstering. I offended a friend for saying that I would go stay at someone else's house, and she said, have I made you feel uncomfortable here? No, I don't want to burden you, and that's just not how they think out there. So after year one, I have gone back 2 more times, and just developed some of those friendships, and they're not currently hosting Hathor anymore, but I'll probably go out there every couple of years for the rest of my life.
Nice. What kind of terrain is that area? Sand? Okay.
Yeah. The first year, my friend Hazem was the race director, and he didn't want to make it too difficult. He's a climbing guide, but he's not much of an ultra runner. The second year, one of the guys who had run it the first year became the race director, and he put you up every scraggy bit, every sand dune you could run. He really upped the
I'm just imagining sand getting in my shoes on that ultra now, and
my girlfriend came out with me for year 2 and 3, and year 2 I brought everything she needed to run it. Under the guise that, you can just go for a run while I'm doing the race. She was there to be support or crew. And the day before, we're at camp. We're hosted by a Bedouin tribe, and we're having dinner, and I'm talking to the owner of the company, the Ultra Egypt. His name's Omar Samra. He's the first Egyptian man to summit Everest. He's an incredible guy, an amazing activist. But he says, I'll front you I'll cover your race entry if you want to race. And we convinced her. She's never run an ultra up to that point. We convinced her to lace up, and she got 50K done and lost a whole bunch of toenails. And that sand chewed us all up.
I'm very, very particular about my shoes, and I've yet to have that problem, but
I've lost.
Curious to see as I progress deeper into the ultras.
Well, you've done Canyonlands. Is there any does that get fairly sandy?
There are some sandy spots, but no, I don't think I had to take off my shoes the whole time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, gaiters are the trick. I was running in ultras for a long time, and those 2-point attachment gaiters were enough for me. But most people, which is like a no-brainer when you're running Marathon des Sables, you do the 360 Velcroed
Yeah,
gaiters.
I just switched over to. Oh wait, no, I'm wearing my ultras right now, but I switched over to topos and got
Oh,
their
nice.
gaiters. So
Yeah.
yeah, those things really lock down.
Yeah, I haven't tried them yet. I saw the two attachment points in the back. I'm
Hmm.
definitely
Yeah,
looking into that.
they've got the nice Velcro, and that was what really sold me. Because then you
Yeah.
can easily change your or adjust your laces if need be.
Yeah, I liked how light the Ultra Gators were, and you cannot convince me to put a strap underneath my shoe like some
Yeah,
of those aftermarket Gators.
I got a pair of those recently just for like hiking that I haven't gotten to try yet. But yeah, for running, I don't think I'd want anything. Yeah, going under the shoe either.
Even, micro spikes, like if I feel
Mm.
it underfoot, it'll just drive me crazy. So
Oh
I
yeah.
end up I'd rather power slide down a mountain than have traction. Uh, yeah, the sand is the real killer. It's once it gets into the toe, um, you have to get it out. Otherwise, you're
Mm-hmm.
losing toenails or you're degloving a toe.
Ugh.
It's intense. I think year 3, my girlfriend lost 6 of 10
Jeez.
toenails. So we're we're plenty used to that around the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna bring up. So I'm signed up for the I'm Tough 100 up in Idaho.
Yeah, you were
It's gonna
telling me
be
about that.
later this September. So I was curious on your thoughts of. So I've done up to a 50 miler. I mean, if you got good running background, you train. I feel like 50's very doable. You just kind of mentally push through. You don't have to maybe think all that hard. But I feel like 100's definitely a different game. Curious what you think is the biggest difference once you're getting into those triple digits in terms of preparation, experience during the race. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I've had a rocky go of it, getting up past 100K and the 100 mile. Um, the biggest lesson was patience in the nighttime. I'm so expectant to hit certain time goals, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm so focused on uh, pacing out each section that when it all goes sideways,
Mm-hmm.
um, I get frustrated to the point that it can really start to bring you down into that
Mm-hmm.
mental um, dark place. And the best race of the best 100 mile that I've done is Run Rabbit, and I was chasing cutoffs. I was uh, registered as a hare, so it was a 30-hour cutoff, and just blew up middle of the day, steepest, hottest part of the course. Just 20 miles in, I was ready to call it. Sun went down, had a little nip of whiskey from some kind soul at an aid station, and ended up being able to just have the most fun in my life through that night because there was no uh, should I conserve, should I push. It was just, you have to get going, you have to get to this next checkpoint. And there was no way we were going to not finish that race, so it was
Mm-hmm.
just whatever we had to do to progress. So I think that, yeah, we're picking up kind of where you were at with your 50 miler. You can, I think most people could just push through to finish a 50
Mm-hmm.
miler, but a 100 miler, you're going to have some strategies. I can't remember who, but there's uh, the anecdote that an ultra or a 100 miler is 1,000 yes or no questions, and if you answer any of them wrong, you're potentially not going to finish. Um, it's, should I eat right now? Should I rest? Should I push? Should I change my socks? Um, giving
Mm-hmm.
yourself those comforts, but not giving yourself any uh, excuse. Those comforts are nice, but you have to be willing to live without them,
Sure.
because that change of socks might feel great, but if you get to an aid station and you find your drop bag isn't where it's supposed to be and you can't change your socks, are you going to
Mm-hmm.
let that bring you out of that mental space that you need make it to the next checkpoint.
True.
So yeah, I'm coming up on 300 milers in 3 months. I'm going for the dead last version of what Courtney Dauwalter did. So I've got Antelope Canyon, Zion, and Bryce, March, April, May, and last time I did Antelope Canyon, I was dead last. So I went from a year prior winning path over 130K to being dead last at Antelope Canyon, but just having to finish it. So that's been on my mind a lot. What is it? What is the mental strategy to continuing going? And I think patience with yourself is kind of key. You have to be willing to continue down that path while it feels bad, under the promise that it does feel better eventually. Even if that's lying to yourself. You got to tell yourself that.
Yep. Yeah. Really get that delayed gratification.
Yeah, the that Antelope Canyon experience was the hardest.
Where's that one located?
Page, Arizona. So it goes through Antelope Slot Canyons, just as Navajo land.
Is that a toasty race, or what time of year is that?
So it's next month, March.
Okay.
March 9th. It gets pretty warm during the day, but it gets mighty cool at night.
Not too bad in terms of Arizona.
No, not bad at all, especially for being so close to Tahoe, or not Tahoe, Powell. Regulates pretty well, so let's see, last year my girlfriend did the 50 miler and it was just rain the entire time. Just rain turned into mud, turned into just, I think 10 100 milers finished.
Wow.
It was, it was a brutal race. And of course, my girlfriend, being a different person than I, finished it with a smile, came into every aid station laughing. And I, at that 100 miler, she saw me at the absolute lowest point in my running career, sitting on the side of the trail, trying to put a salt pill in my mouth, gagging every time it got closer than a couple inches from my lips, and just whispering to myself, "Get it together, Malcolm." So she's made sure I remember that experience. Every time we talk about her crewing, it's how bad is this one gonna be?
Yeah, I feel like I'm that person that I'm definitely smiling at the aid stations, but I think it's just entirely, even though I'm the one doing the hard thing, even I don't want to bring down the vibe.
Yeah. I came into one of the last aid stations. Sun was just going down at Black Canyon 100K, which is an incredible race if you get the opportunity to do
Black
it.
Canyon.
That's Aravaipa. It's I can't remember the town it starts in, but it's just a point-to-point incredibly fun canyon trail. But sun's going down this, I come around this turn, I see the lit up tent and run into it. I just come out of a total hole. I was in a hard place, and then I came around, I saw the tent, I was happy. I came in and said, "What's up, party people?" And nobody was stoked to hear that. I got a bunch of blank looks. I think a couple of people were huddled by a heater ready to DNF. So my rare exuberant positivity was out of the vibe for that one. But yeah, even when in pain, I've met Andrew Glaze out on the trail while I was pacing Cocodona 250. He's incredible. He's 200 straight weeks into a 100-mile week streak. He's absolutely incredible, but 3.5 days into his race, and we're chatting trailside like he was fresh and happy to chat. So I think having that ability to just pretend that you're happy is enough to get you through it.
Yeah, kind of like I don't know. I definitely always been a sort of gratitude when I'm on the trails. For me, I was actually born out here in Colorado Springs. Got some aunts and uncles out here as well, but my parents moved back to Iowa when I was little, so grew up out there. And then once I kind of got to realize that the mountains were just my favorite place in the world. Now that I'm finally out here, live here, can experience it every day I want. Yeah, there's definitely just an underlying level of gratitude, or even if I'm having like a kind of a bad run, I can at least look around and be like, all right, well, at least
Yeah.
you know I'm where I want to be.
My girlfriend asked me, I think just out of the kindness, how was it after every run? And
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if it was good or bad. Sometimes I say not great, but in a pretty happy tone.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be a good run for it to be a worthwhile experience. And yeah, we're so spoiled with
Mm-hmm.
uh, trail access, and getting to spend any time in the mountains is truly a a privilege that we
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't take advantage of.
Yeah, or when you've pushed yourself and you're to the level we're at with like distances, we'll say, yeah, it didn't go that great. But if you're talking to your average Joe, they're just like, dude, you're just great. It's amazing. You even just
Yeah.
did 10 miles up a mountain. We're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
You can kind of like realize that every now and then. You're like, okay, it was a rough run for me, but for 99.999% of the population, what we did was pretty amazing.
There's a barrier I hit in my like kind of first year training to ultra run, in which I got through. I lived at the base of Red Rock Canyon Open Space, which is
Okay.
right up in the foothills. Uh, I would run loops in that park, and finally I got to this distance where I would leave the park deeper into the mountains,
Mm.
get completely out of my element, and I realized that this section of trail isn't accessible by anything nearer than where I had started. So I'm
Oh.
part of, like you were saying, a percentage point of the population that
Mm-hmm.
that has the privilege of doing this. I don't have to wake up at 4 a.m. to get this far out. I can do
Mm-hmm.
this in a day by running. Um, I went backpacking on Indian Peaks Wilderness, the Pawnee Buchanan Loop. Gorgeous, but it took us like 4 days, and it was like a
Mm-hmm.
20-mile loop. And I thought, man, we should really just come back here sometime with
Oh
a
yeah.
light pack and some snacks, and we could knock this out. Uh, it opens you up when you head into that 20-mile distance to
Mm-hmm.
so many experiences in a day that
Yeah, I'm excited this year. This will be like coming into my second year in Colorado, and there's that first year where you're just getting used to it. You get all your gear figured out,
oh
just
yeah.
get comfortable going somewhere that you don't hardly know what to expect. I was always that very forward thinking. It's hard for me to take any action without like a clear plan. So this year going into it, I feel a lot like I could just pick a destination, not really know what to expect, show up in my truck, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, be
Well,
able to enjoy it rather than just kind of like, oh, I don't know what the plan is. How? Yeah.
yeah. The needing a plan part has never been uh, my thing. My girlfriend definitely wants the map on her watch, wants to
Mm-hmm.
know, even if she doesn't need to look at it, she
That's
would
been a
still
good
have it up.
crux for me. I've got one of
Oh yeah,
the nice ones that shows all the trails. They'll
yeah.
give you a route back. Yeah.
Yeah, I put it up for every race. I've got the GPX
Mm-hmm.
file up on every race. But when I'm out training, I can usually get within a mile or two of the distance I wanted just by guessing. Just,
Mm-hmm.
if you're coming in a little bit long, you skip that last trail section, run the road back, and
Yep.
just by doing that, um, and remaining flexible, I've found trails that I can't believe no one's ever told me about.
Mm-hmm.
Especially up in places like Cheyenne Canyon,
Yeah.
where a lot of the local kind of semi-pros.
I've been exploring that area a little bit more lately, just more in the snow, but
You would never run
I'll be.
out of something to find up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. Um, yeah, I love the exploring bit. Having a plan or having an idea of what you want to do. Well, like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people talk about don't train distance, train time. Uh, don't worry about getting your 10 miles in today. Just
Yeah.
worry about getting your hour and a half or 2
Especially
hours.
in when you're getting into like the big ultras, it's really
Yeah,
getting comfortable, yeah, with time.
time on feet, and because of that, you don't have to hit that 10 miles if you elect.
Mm-hmm.
Why follow a plan that says 10 miles if you think that, man, today I should really do some serious vert?
True.
That's not sticking to what that plan intended. If if I do 10 miles up and down Pikes Peak, that's a
That's a
different
lot
thing
of.
than,
Mm-hmm.
say you had a coached training plan. That's not what they were expecting you to do. They would have modified the distance.
Mm-hmm.
So training off of time uh, is certainly more effective to me. Um, that said, I am not good at training. I'm not good at sticking to a training plan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm good at coaching it. I'm not good at sticking to my own rules.
Yeah, I'm feeling confident that with how last year went, that I think I can kind of manage my own training leading up to this 100. But there's always been that thought in the back of my head. It's like, oh, should I maybe get a coach for it? But it's yeah.
Well, and it sounds like from your perspective, liking a plan, liking things to be laid out
Mm-hmm.
with some structure. Um,
Yeah,
that
it's
might be a more effective use of your time to have someone writing out.
mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it's because for me, like, I guess also when it comes to just ultra running, for one, I'm not gonna be one of those people that's probably winning the race. I kind of, I guess, a mixed bag. Like Canyonlands, I think I was in the like 26th, 25th out of 100. But then at like Crested Butte, that one was a rough race because I was traveling 2 weeks out, and then I got COVID a week out, and then I had a scheduling blunder and still went to see my favorite band in Denver the night before. So basically, just was like laying in the back of a car the drive up to the start line.
oh yeah.
So that race, I finished with like 40 minutes to spare. So towards the end of the pack, but so my mentality, at least going into my first hundreds, is just just not DNF. And
Well,
I'm
if you finish at all, you're in the top 50% of
mm,
starters at a
oh
100
okay,
miler. So, I mean, most 100 milers that I've seen, the DNF rate's about 50%.
oh
So,
okay,
when you're looking at Leadville, they're so supportive, and it's an incredible race.
mm-hmm.
I DNF'd at Winnie halfway. So
Yeah.
2024,
What do you think
2025,
is
I got to get out there.
what do you think would what do you think is like the leading cause of a DNF? Do you think it's more literally not going fast enough, or do you think it's mostly a just like giving in mentally and
Um,
throwing in the towel
yeah, so mine
for
was
most people, or
mine was
also for yourself?
physical this time, which gave me a certain amount of comfort. If if I had to have lost the mental game,
Mm-hmm. That's
um,
true.
I would have, I'd be a lot more upset to this day. Um, but yeah, I think that there's just so many variables that you can't control, um, that you either need to be in a position, in a flexible position to overcome those, or you need, just some serious, serious grit. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Run Rabbit is in Steamboat Springs. Um, 13,000 is the high point, and
Yeah,
more,
that's
and it's in September. It's
mm-hmm.
getting cold. It's a ski town, so they they say there are more DNFs every year due to the cold than anything else.
Okay.
And it gets seriously cold. It gets, there's frost under your foot and it's 20 degrees at night.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is it's 70 during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So you're prepared to be cold, but what people forget is that what you would run in 20 degrees regularly is not nearly warm enough for the middle of the night during a 100-miler.
True. Yeah. 20 in the sun versus 20 at night.
Well,
Totally different.
and even at night, if you're not running all the way through the night, that gear that you're wearing is just not gonna last you. It's gonna get sweaty. It's gonna freeze, or you're not gonna be running as fast. So you have to wear what you would need to wear if you were just walking around at 20 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we had gotten right in my race planning for Run Rabbit, and that was quintessential, like a puffy jacket, not a running jacket. And
That's good to know, because I think my race, I need to do a lot more research on it. I haven't hardly done any to date, but I know it's like, I think kind of northern Idaho and in later September, so I'm sure it's gonna, the nights are gonna be getting cold. So
some pretty serious mountains up in Idaho.
Yeah, I've never been. I need to push myself to do a little more of the, like I said, kind of unplanned, like just pick a region of the western U.S., go explore it or something. Because I haven't been hardly anywhere outside of Colorado, heading west. So I'm looking forward to
I've been
get some more
looking
exploring in.
Cascades in Oregon. Looks like an incredible race. But then you're starting to deal with rain. I'm perfectly fine. I ran Royal Gorge Groove this last year. It's a Aravaipa, Colorado race.
That's the spring, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm planning on making that my first race this year.
Oh, nice.
Do the 50K, so
that's awesome. Yeah,
should be fun.
I got a entry. A friend had dropped out of the 30K, and so I was not training at that point in the year, and I picked
Casual
up their entry.
30K.
It was a blizzard.
Oh, really?
So I love running in the snow. It's other than getting whipped in the face. Same with Leadville Marathon last year. It was pellet snow to the face up on some of those mountaintops. But I'm much more comfortable with that than rain. That permeating, soaking.
Yeah, it just gets you to your core. Like I've technically ran through what was considered a blizzard back in Iowa. It was only like 30 degrees, so it wasn't like a cold blizzard, but and I've run some cold temperatures for sure, but the coldest race I've ever done was just a half marathon in Des Moines, where it was like 40 degrees and pouring rain the entire time. And I was surviving through the run, but yeah, not 5 minutes later, you're just shivering. You're like, oh shit, I need to get out of these clothes now.
Yeah,
that was a new experience.
The start line of our local race group, Pikes Peak Roadrunners, puts on a fall series and a winter series, just to kind of keep people in shape in what most people have as an off season. I've been at a race before where it started at like 15, 20 degrees, and the guy at the start line right before just is begging people to take layers off, because he's like, you're gonna get half a mile down and you're gonna be sweating through that. It's such a funny balance, and we're always having this conversation before leaving the house in the winter of should I wear this jacket? Should I wear this extra layer?
I've been in the instance of the opposite, where we'll get in over our head and wishing we had a jacket. We started in North Cheyenne at that lot one day.
Oh, nice, yeah.
It was 60 degrees and sunny in the parking lot, and we were had like an idea for our route, and then we were just in denial for about 8 miles in like 6 inches of snow and freezing temps, that like where we were going to connect onto Old Gold Camp or something was. And next thing we knew, we were 13 miles away. And I'm like way, way back on Gold Camp, and I was in shorts and a t-shirt. The sun had set, and we were just like, it was 3 of us. 2 of us were upper Midwest. We're used to the cold.
Yeah.
We were hungry and cold, not necessarily having a good time, but we're like, oh, we could survive it back. And then we had a third guy who's skinnier and from Houston, Texas. And props that he was being tough, but we could tell that, he was, his mental, he was definitely being pressed and seeing the sun go down, the cold setting in.
There's a shift there when it starts to get scary. I was running up Mount Rosa, starting from probably that same parking lot, and it's fantastic right up until kind of that final approach, and it starts getting deeper and deeper snow, and it starts. You come into this clearing. It kind of feels like a false summit. This little hip between a couple of peaks.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
The wind starts hitting you sideways this day, and my socks get crusted with ice, and they're like little.
I had ankle weights of ice by the end of that run I was talking about.
I didn't know what to call them, but ankle weights. That's a great. And my feet are hurt, and I'm wearing my signature short shorts, and I get to the top, and I tag that turnaround rock that I like to touch, and I came screaming down. Not a picture, not a, not a, I was here. Just.
I need to go up to the top of there sometimes. I did the Pikes Peak Ultra. That was my first 50K, and I remember getting to the top after that like fall summit, and you're just like, so I just took like a quick panoramic video. Yep. I'm like, I'll look at that later, and just went back down.
I'll tell you, that's my favorite view of Pikes Peak is from the summit of Rosa.
All right, I'll definitely work that into a training run this year so I can sit there and enjoy it, maybe eat a snack.
Yeah, I mean a good 14-mile run just from that Gold Camp parking lot.
Is that okay?
It's that parking lot for like 7 bridges.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We're just so lucky with that area. But yeah, you can run up it and back down in just a couple of hours, and
awesome.
I love that. I've been up there camping. We used to camp up there on 4th of July. You can see every town's fireworks all around. You can even see
I gotta remember Creek. That. I saw the New Year's fireworks.
Oh yeah, the Advent Club.
Yeah, from down kind of Broadmoor area.
Nice.
That was cool to see the tip of the mountain get lit up by those.
Yeah, it lights up that white eastern face of the mountain. Yeah, the Advent Club doing that every year really brings something special to our New Year. Mount Rosa, I mean, we went up there one time and it started hailing. One of 2 times my dad's ever told me, "Don't tell your mom."
I was gonna say
I've gone the temp fly trying to set it up, and it starts hailing, and we're just getting pelted in the back.
I've run through all sorts of weather. The only thing that will stop me, like have me scurrying under a bridge, is hail. You don't mess with hail. Yeah, if you can help it.
I've had some light hail in which it was still kind of amusing, but then you get one good thump on the head, and
exactly
it's
that. You're like,
anymore.
Oh, this isn't too bad, and then just whack, and you're like, oh. Yeah. It's gonna be an exciting year. I've got a lot of training to do, but looking forward to it. And
yeah, what you got after I'm Tough? You setting goals further out than that, or?
No, yeah, I'm still kind of young enough, and really thinking out much more than a year doesn't happen too often. So I got into ultras and did an Ironman a couple years ago. Always wanted to do ultras. Finally moved out here to a landscape where I'd actually want to run as much as you need to.
Oh yeah,
to do that. And then in my head, like I know an ultra is technically anything than like a marathon, but in my head, like that triple digit number, that was like the real thing to hit for me to kind of, I guess, for me to really feel like an ultra runner just with today's standards. And finishing the 50s, you finish the 50 and you're like, oh man, 100 really sounds like a lot. But then give it like a month, it settles in, and you're like, one thing I like to tell people is, when you start, like a 5K sounds like a lot, or that my first marathon when I was 16, going from chubby golfer to marathon runner, that was a lot, and you're so tired after that. But then, hey, went and did.
It's incredible
50
how
miles.
quickly we make it sound small. It's Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done a couple of
You get
50s.
to know somebody like, the guy you said you were running with and how he's 3 days in and still cheery. So you just
Yeah,
start comparing yourself to people way further and further on and forget how
you know,
extraordinary it is just
and
doing what we do is.
I intend to do a 200.
Mm-hmm.
It's not on my immediate radar, but it's important that I do it eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But once I hit that 100 mile, I definitely the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome went away a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I started to feel more comfortable. Like, okay, I fit in here. Like
Yeah. I also just have like just so many different goals and stuff throughout life that I'm curious if I hit that 100, if I will feel kind of satisfied enough that I'll be able to, not have as big of an itch for the
yeah.
running side and then start filling my time with other non-fitness related goals.
Hmm.
Definitely won't stop running by any means. I'm too addicted to that, but I'm curious to see once I finish 100 if if I'll still have a bad enough itch that maybe I'll want to do another 100 for a better time or more distance, or if I'll be able to. I'm kind of hoping I'll be able to back back off the running a little bit and start focusing on some other big life goals. But
Sure.
yeah.
Well, and it's a good platform to preparing you for so many things in life to
Mm-hmm.
really put yourself through that struggle. The 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 big one for me is like I've not had a fast 100 yet. I've not
Mm-hmm.
hit sub 24. So
That's something that's like also wild about ultras is like was it my first 50. I'm pretty sure the person that got first was literally like 5 hours
oh
faster
yeah,
than me, and my time was just under 15. So just the range of speeds is just it's
in
wild to consider. Courtney when was like when she won Moab, I think it was Moab 240 was when she kind of like really got on everybody's radar. I think
yeah.
she beat second place by like 10 hours. So she could have gotten a full night's rest, still won by 2 hours. It's wild
It
to
is
the
insane. I
scope of it.
Even at like the half marathon range, like Pikes Peak
Hmm.
Ascent, half marathon straight up the mountain,
Yeah.
7,800 feet again, and it was a good year when the top guy wasn't twice as fast as me. And,
Wow.
now
Yeah.
I've closed that gap
And
quite a
there's
bit, but
people probably way, way slower than you, even, I would
well, I mean,
imagine.
there's a whole yeah, there's
I don't know if there's a cutoff or how.
so it's a qualified race, so
Oh,
there's
okay. Okay.
yeah.
So I guess so. There's the half marathon, and the like the ascent is something
Yeah, the
different,
ascent.
right?
No, the ascent is the half
Or is
marathon.
that
So
okay?
that's a third Saturday or whatever in I think September now.
Hmm.
And then on Sunday is the marathon, and it's the exact same course, but you
Yep.
ring the top and you come screaming back down.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done 4 ascents and 4 marathons now. I think
Mm.
maybe 3 marathons. The last 2 years doubling. So Saturday you
Mm.
do the ascent, Sunday you do the marathon. It's our little local
Yeah.
ultra push.
I'm sure I'll end up doing it one
Oh,
day.
it's incredible. It's super fun.
That'd be a good, if I do back off for next year,
Yeah. Well,
that'd
and
be a
you can
good one to put on
qualify.
the.
You're already qualified. Whatever you've done, I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
is qualified. They just want to know, every year they've got usually at least one flight for life, so they're just trying
Oh
to
yeah,
reduce
I'm
that.
sure.
Uh, yeah, the top guys, Remy Bonnet reset the ascent record at 2 hours and like 24 seconds or something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
That's wild. Cause I did casually hike it with a friend who,
yeah,
for them, that was like this massive, like really impressive hike,
yeah,
which it is.
oh
But
yeah,
that took us like 14 hours round trip. Hanging out at the top for a while.
right.
So just considering that amount of time compared to getting up it in like two
Yeah.
hours.
Well, and what seemed insurmountable to me, like this last year, the marathon, after having run the ascent the day before, I set a new PR on the marathon.
Mm.
Wasn't looking at it, wasn't trying for it, didn't
Mm-hmm.
know what my PR was. My dad shows up to heckle me into the finish line on his mountain bike every year. Bike down Ruxton Road and just sling insults till I finish
Nice.
because I'm too winded to defend myself.
Mm-hmm.
And this year I beat him. He was he was just starting to bike up the road when I
Oh,
finished. So,
okay.
I
Nice.
came in way faster than expected, and there's such an odd ability to do that it's pushed me into more multi-stage racing.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of these 2-day things, and
Okay.
so September
That
I'm
would be interesting. Have that
yeah
mentality that accepting you have to go do it again or something similar the next day.
waking up the second day of Hathor 100 and being just brutalized
Mm-hmm.
and starting to run on
Yeah.
heels that are on fire.
There's
um,
a good challenge, the one that David Goggins always like does every year, where you run
the
uh,
4 by
miles every 4 hours for 48
yeah
hours. So like,
yeah
I think that's a really good challenge. I like to suggest to people. I don't think anybody I've talked to has ever done it, but
I've
it's because it's not like
had a couple of friends.
too hard on your body, but having to wake up at 2 a.m. and just get yourself outside, go run 4 miles, and then 4 hours later wake up again.
I think it's a good
That's the real
practical
challenge.
yeah it's a good practical training exercise for experiencing some of that 100-mile feeling,
Mm-hmm.
some of that, I have to stand up again. Like,
Yep.
I have to get going. There's no excuse. There's no woe is me. There's just
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
there's all there is the next 4 miles. So I'm just
Yeah.
gonna
So I
just gonna
definitely
do it.
recommend if there's any listener feeling inspired today, I think that's if you're not, I think for a lot of, if you're an active person, that's a very doable, because you could even walk 4 miles within every 4 hours and
Sure.
you're gonna get less downtime in between. But like, I think that's a great challenge for people looking to go push themselves, and it's not that risky. You go back to your front door, at the end, you're not 100 miles out in the mountains wondering if you need to get evac continue and risk getting evac or something.
Yeah, I
But
think there are so many great challenges. What's the that really popular relay race?
uh, uh, I know
Not
like Ragnar's like a sort
yeah,
of. My dad did one, I think, between Minneapolis and Chicago. I
nice.
think with like
Yeah,
a
it's
few
like
other people.
200-mile courses or
Yeah,
something,
that sounds
split
about
up
right.
between 4 or 5 people. That's a great challenge for someone who doesn't want to take on a
Mm-hmm.
100-mile effort by themselves, but it's still got that
Yeah, you're kind
technical
of.
problem solving of
Yeah, you do some
logistical.
miles. You gotta go rest, maybe do some crew work,
Yeah.
and then you gotta go do some more miles.
I've done a 10-hour relay in which 4-mile loops and for 10 hours and you keep trading
Mm.
off, and man, that third and fourth loop just
Mm-hmm.
and when you've had all that cool down time
Yeah,
and you
it's
build up that lactic acid and then you have to go break it up again, and
mm-hmm.
that's crazy. I'm heading out to Wales in September to do a 6-day.
Hmm.
Uh, Not huge mileage every day, but it's a race called the Dragon's Back, and just follows a mountain range, the spine of a mountain range across Wales.
Hmm.
But
You're saying all these cool races, and I'm just like, I'm gonna finish this 100, and then just gonna see all these cool destination races. I'm gonna get that itch again.
that's where I'm at these days. Is if it can bring me somewhere, if I can meet a community of runners.
Mm.
The race in Egypt, I've such a huge cultural uh, breakdown. It was such a eye-opening experience outside of anything that I had ever had the preconceived notions to even begin to think of like what it would be like uh, to be embraced by these different running communities around the world. Definitely make the destination race more of a priority for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, going to Wales, I've been to the UK, I've been to Wales. I love them. It's not a huge culture shock to me.
Mm-hmm. True.
I'm an Irish Polish guy in Wales. I'm gonna fit in just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the middle of South Sinai with a Bedouin tribe, um, shaking hands with a sheik and trying not to be socially taboo at any point
Mm-hmm.
is, just a really fun way to learn through experience. And
Yeah.
so I definitely recommend, any of those vacation races or those destination races, just as a way of seeing and experiencing something that isn't completely wrapped in tourism, but
Yeah.
has some cultural
I
tie.
need to let that like sink into my head because I'm young and they always say like, oh, go explore, in your 20s or whatever. But I've also been just like so focused on certain kinds of like business goals and other things like that I don't really have much of a travel bug in me.
Mm,
But if I do get to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to force myself to have one, maybe that could be a good conduit, like a reason for me to, plan a big trip that's going
yeah,
to give me a brand new experience, have at least maybe a race or something that to be that focus point just to get me out and
definitely.
something new.
Well, and I think that you catch the travel bug through doing
Doing
it.
more, yeah. I would just like running. You start out and it's
Yeah,
it's rough, and then you get a little good at it, and you're like, ooh,
and a
kind of like
lot of
this.
the discomforts of being in a culture or a city or an environment or a climate that isn't comfortable for you,
Mm-hmm.
um, is super translatable to those discomforts from running. You
Mm-hmm.
know that finding food in in
Oh,
a market in Cairo where English is fairly limited, and
yeah.
uh, my
I'm just
Egyptian Arabic is way
getting
more
stressed
limited.
out thinking about this.
It's very similar to that discomfort of coming into an aid station and having to figure out like how am I gonna navigate this? How am I
Mm-hmm.
gonna convince myself that I'm okay?
That's a good comparison.
Um, but the first year in Egypt, we're running, and there's a camel rider in the front of the pack. He keeps telling me I'm off course, and I'm following a GPX that's the proper course. But he's
Mm-hmm.
a Bedouin tribal local, and so he knows the fastest, quickest way around this mountain that we're circumnavigating.
Okay.
And so I keep to the trail. I know one of the route setters was wearing ultras, and I know that shoe print. So every time I'd see the shoe
Mm.
print, I felt like I knew I was on. And we're much stricter in the U.S. about course cutting. In some
Yeah.
European races, they'll do some switchback cutting and stuff. I'm not willing to do it at all. I don't want,
Mm-hmm.
especially leading that race. I didn't want there to be any question
True.
that I didn't run every step of it. But he keeps calling me over. He cuts way off, and eventually he's out of sight. And it's been almost 10K. There's supposed to be an aid station. And I'm looking out
Oh.
in this desert where I can see for miles, and there's
There's
no
no.
aid station. And I come up over the sand dune, and at the bottom of the dune is the aid station. It's
Mm.
freaking out before. There, 1 minute where I'm thinking my passport is at camp. I don't speak
Oh.
Egyptian Arabic, let alone Bedouin Arabic. I don't have service. I don't, there's no internet out there. There's no
Mm-hmm.
cell signal out there. I thought, even if I could flag down one of those trucks in the distance, driving on little sand roads,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I could
You know.
properly convey my way. I don't even remember the name of the camp or the,
Right.
the whole area was Serbat Al Khadim. So, like, I don't know what the specific camp I needed to get to was.
Hmm.
And then I see the aid station. And I was like, oh, yeah, we're totally fine. Everything's cool. I was overreacting. Uh, but that discomfort, once you come to terms with that, and once you experience that and realize that it is ultimately going to be okay, there's no travel experience that can be more
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable than that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I can get a little sense of that now that I've been doing more
yeah.
deep in the backwoods, or you think you've ran further than you
Mm-hmm.
have, and you're like, oh, I feel like I should hit it by now. But yeah, that's a wild story. In case they start knocking on our door here, suppose we'll have to start wrapping it up. But I know, so you got those 3 races coming up, but I know you've got some sort of charity kind of linked to that.
Yeah. So I think everyone at some point gets talked into doing a charity bid, and I met the people at Wander Project, which is a charity bib organization. They handle the charity bibs for races like Cocodona 250, all of the vacation races, brand of racing. They handle all those charity bibs. But they give you the opportunity to raise for any nonprofit, not just the race partner nonprofit.
Okay.
And so I naturally picked the Trails and Open Spaces Coalition, which if you live in the Pikes Peak region, every trail, every open space that you've touched, like they've had a hand in the advocacy for that. And you have them to thank for this trail mecca that we live. So I immediately decided, let's do 300-mile charity bibs back to back to back, March, April, and May. It's a $6,000 fundraising commitment. And
okay, so that's how it works. So like they'll give you the bibs, but you commit to a certain donation, and then obviously you're trying to not have to maybe put all that out of pocket.
Within 90 days, which I'm within 90 days of all 3 races at the point we're recording this. So that's my commitment date. So I'm officially in for $6,000. So whatever we don't raise, I pay. And the point of it has always been I'm willing to pay the race entry in full, and I could have done that to the tune of $600 or $700 for all 3 races. But to get to decide where that money goes, to get to decide to make an impact for Trails and Open Spaces Coalition, which has made such a huge impact in my life, just decided to fundraise for that. So like currently as of recording this, we're at $3,000 raised. We've got my first race coming up in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, I think. And then we've been able to bring together a whole huge community of people and just a bunch of really small donations. If you're a runner, if you're listening to this podcast, I assume you're a runner. So Run Sign Up is who handles all the donations. runsignup.com/300 miles of giving is my link, and it's as quick or as easy as they make it for signing up for a race. They try to make it like Ultra Sign Up and Run Sign Up. It both made it like 2 clicks and you've just committed to a 100-miler. They make it that easy for donating.
Okay.
So I've really felt the community coming together. We've done a couple of events and raised quite a bit through it, and I figure just plug it on some podcasts and keep running with a goal in mind. And I know we'll end up getting to that goal because the executive director and I of Trails and Open Spaces Coalition sat down together, and she talked about nothing's free. She said, we enjoy all these trails and open spaces in the Pikes Peak region, and especially during COVID when everyone got stir crazy and everyone started getting out on the trails. We didn't see the same influx in trail advocacy or trail work. We didn't see it. We've seen some more people getting into it, but we haven't seen that equal level of participation to using and benefiting the trails.
That's true. I feel like when I moved out here, I just joined a ton of like local Facebook groups.
Sure.
Just to, get ideas or meet people. And I feel like I saw a lot this last year of the regular trail users complaining about how beat up the trails
Mud
were.
ruts and trash. And
so, yeah, that's a good point.
So this is my way in one big push for this year of trying to gather as many of those trail users and open space users as I can to focus as much of our impact that is negative on the trail by using it. Horses, mountain bikes, and runners alike, we're all damaging the trail a little bit every time. This is my push to call for people to just do their part in specifically for this fundraising, and then past fundraising, getting together with groups like Rocky Mountain Field Institute and volunteering some time to actually do the physical reparation of trails. Which, by the way, RIMFI, Rocky Mountain Field Institute, if you ever want to go volunteer, it's an incredible time.
Rocky Mountain Institute. Yeah, I'm definitely going to write that down. Now that I'm getting more in tune with just the Colorado community kind of ecosystem. That's a good point. And I've never asked anything of my listeners, the few that there may be. I'm definitely in my infancy stages here, but definitely encourage and ask any of the listeners of this podcast to go check out. I'll definitely share that link. Please go donate to that. I'm definitely going to go donate and pitch in after this. So I guess to finish it up, we've got that link. Any other links, your socials that you maybe want to plug for anybody?
I mean, like most ultra runners, I tried to do the influency thing there for a minute, but I don't care about it as much. I'm on Instagram as Malcom Konik. My tag is, I think, vegan ultra runner. I love seeing what people are doing, so that part of it's great, but far be it from me to promote my social media. All it is me posting dumb reels and even dumber stories. So
that's also what kind of goes viral these days. So who knows?
Sure.
Well, awesome, man. Appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
I think we could spend all day talking about this sort of stuff. So maybe we'll have to do an episode 2 after your 3 big races coming up. Maybe do a little
absolutely.
debrief, see how it went.
I'll have some horror stories to convey. That third race I'll be finishing on my birthday, so
awesome.
I'm just looking forward to that. That's all the motivation I need, and after that I'm sure we'll have some pretty harrowing tales from the trail.
Awesome. Well, once again, I appreciate it, man, and
thanks.
Hopefully everybody enjoyed this conversation. This is exactly what I've been looking for. Give like you mentioned, maybe you'd think runners are all listening to this, but I want to say, most people listening to this actually probably aren't yet. So I'm all about trying to give them a little look into the running world and hopefully, convince people to maybe join into it and see if there's a way to better themselves with it. So yeah, really appreciate you coming on and helping me with my little mission there.
Absolutely. Worthy cause.
That wraps it up for today's episode. I really enjoyed this conversation with Malcom. He has definitely a fascinating past with running, and I feel like we were able to talk about a lot of the more deeper side of running, what it means to the individual and how it can help you navigate life. And again, I'll ask, if you are able, please donate to the nonprofit Malcom is running for, the Trails and Open Spaces Coalition. There's a specific link so you can donate to his specific piece of the cause. runsignup.com/300 miles of giving, which will be linked in the description. We wish Malcom luck on those upcoming races, and hopefully I can have him on again after. Maybe we'll get a little debrief on how they go. Doing 3 separate 100-mile races within 3 months is definitely a big accomplishment, even when considering the ultra running world. So it would be interesting to hear about his experiences with those, as well as diving in deeper to the meaning of running in our lives. I would love to continue that conversation with him. So in the meantime, look forward to that. If you want to learn more about my running efforts, give me a follow on Instagram at TheEnduranceBeast. And feel free to reach out there if you have any input, questions, comments about the show. Happy to hear more about what the listeners like, what you don't, what maybe you'd like me to talk about, potential guest ideas. I appreciate you taking the time to listen today, and as always, I look forward to sharing the next episode.